Thanks, John. So the question is really, who am I? Because it's on the screen, but you now know just as much about me as the hotel that I'm staying in. Now, they have my passport number and my credit card, but it's really tragic because I've stayed in this same hotel probably 100 nights, and they don't know anything more about me than my name, what company I work for, and my credit card number. And the problem with that is that I don't really get even a guest experience. I certainly don't get a connected guest experience. I don't really get anything more than a room. And that's really due to two things. It's due to the fact that we don't collect the right amount of profile data. We don't allow people to share what they expect. And our inventory systems that we use today aren't capable of really doing what they should to transform the industry. So we're going to talk a little about just an industry perspective around things, about measuring customer value, what really matters, what you should be focused on, the defining challenge for the hospitality industry in particular, which is really delivering customer intimacy at scale. A little bit of a walkthrough on the customer experience today, what it is, what it could be, how technology enables that, helps that, and just kind of a close on connected experiences. So unlike some other parts of the travel and transportation industry, hospitality really is a people business. You know, if I asked around the group today, well, you know, who do we have here? Just by a raise of hands, how many people are in the hospitality business? Okay, good. Airline people? Any airline people in the house? There we go. How about people that are in the technology business? Okay. How many of you run a relationship business? See, the problem that I think you have is that everybody in here should have raised their hand for the fact that I think everybody runs a relationship business. You may be in the technology business, you may be in the airline business, you may be in the hospitality industry, but what you really run is a relationship business. You're trying to connect with people, trying to connect with how they experience their journey. And hospitality in particular is largely focused as a people business. If you think about it, understanding the potential of a customer, the value of a customer, today, the industry as a whole, we'll use the airline industry as an example to start. In the airline industry, they've done a pretty good job of building out their loyalty programs that deliver value to the customer. The problem is with that, and I'll use myself as an example. So I've been in the industry for a long time, spent my life on a plane. I have 9 million lifetime miles. 4 million, 4.5 on one airline, and right around 5 on another. And they do a really good job of explaining, giving me benefits. They greet me sometimes. But they're pretty good at recognizing my value if I go direct to them. But if I don't go direct, then they don't really recognize me in the same way. And even what's more tragic is, and I'll be specific, there's an airline that I just happen to never fly, and that's a locational issue. I'm based in Dallas, Texas, so I spend a lot of time with American because they have most of the lift out of Dallas. So I never fly Delta. But the airline that should want my business the most is Delta, because I never fly them. But when they see my profile, because I have a frequent flyer number on Delta, and I have, I think, probably 21,000 lifetime miles. So they see me as not valuable, when they should see me as extraordinarily valuable because I'm a potential customer that could have delivered 9 million lifetime miles to them. And so it's exploring and understanding the value of consumers. And so if you look at the hospitality industry in particular, there are a couple of chains that are doing some really interesting things. There's one in particular that's created a system. So when you go and register, you make a booking with them, they try to figure out who you are, not from their own systems, but from the public internet. They try to figure out if they can find you. Do you have a Instagram account? Do you have a Twitter feed? Do you have a Facebook page that they can learn things about you? And they will actually, let's say if you're on Twitter, if you had 100,000 followers, they will actually mark you as a VIP before you get to the hotel, even if you've never stayed there, because of the potential influence you can have on their brand. And that's digging way deeper than what we normally do. Again, the hotel that I just talked about, again, I've spent a lot of time there and a lot of money there, and they've never asked me a single question about what I'd like my experience to be, where do I stay if I don't stay there. And so it's a little bit about pulling together both intrinsic measures as well as extrinsic measures to really deliver on kind of a full study. We did Oracle Hospitality, we did a study on guest experience, found that 40% of the hospitality industry only uses intrinsic measures. They only use what they capture as part of the booking experience. They don't dig any deeper, which means that there's 60% of the industry that's doing nothing really. And so that it's really an expansion of how to figure out exactly what the value of your customer is. And then using that to really define and deliver customer intimacy at scale. So and using technology to do that. I mean, there's a hotel in Hong Kong that I've stayed at a handful of times that delivers customer intimacy, but the way they do that is with people. The hotel is literally overflowing with staff, and you can't go anywhere without running into somebody asking you if you need help. And they can afford to do that because of two things. One, that labor rates aren't that expensive, and two, they charge a ridiculous amount for their rooms. And so they're able to scale up to that, but that doesn't really work across the industry. So you got to find ways to deliver that. I got invited to play golf at a country club that I would never be able to get into, and it's very private. It's a small amount of members, and they use a simple technology to deliver intimacy at the club. You have to check in at the gate. There's a gate. When you come in, they know all the members, so they know you're a guest. So you drive up from the gate, get to the front to drop your bag off. The very first thing is, Mr. Webb, let me grab your bag. Hadn't even introduced myself. Mr. Webb, let me grab your bag. I'll be glad to stay. Would you like to go down to the range? Sure. Take my bag, go down to the range, walk out on the range. There's a range attendant. He's like, oh, Mr. Webb, good to see you. Here, we'll put you in this spot right here. Oh, I think you're playing with Mr. Johnson. He's going to meet you at the first tee. Drive over to the first tee. There's a guy standing at the first tee. Oh, Mr. Webb. So it took me a little while, because I wasn't that observant that day, to figure out they all had earpieces in. Just, walkie-talkies. And they literally just talk to each other as people move around the club. But it makes it feel like they knew me already. I felt like I was a member. That's not an example of what you need to do in the hospitality space, but it's an example of the level of feeling and caring that you get when you get recognized. And that's why I get frustrated when I go into a hotel that I've stayed in a bunch of times and they give me the little registration card and go, here, can you fill out all your information associated with this, that, or the other thing. When I've done it 100 times before, they should make sure they have that. So the technology that we have, some of it we have in place already, and some of it we need to develop, but we're in a place where customers should feel a more intimate interaction, and it should be delivered by people, but it should be enabled by technology. And so if you think about the travel life cycle, one of the things that causes some of our issues is that when you go from shopping to booking to pre-arrival to arrival to the actual experience to payment and checkout and then post-travel, the data sources get intermingled. We don't always pass along, we don't always play well with each other in a way that kind of allows that data to move from place to place. But technology is now getting to the place where we should be sharing more data, sharing more things. If you think about it, and I guess I'll use my mom and kids as an example. So my mother is scared to share any data. She's scared her identity will get stolen. Now she's 80, but she's scared her identity will get stolen. And as I've explained to her, nobody wants her identity. It's the most boring identity in the world. She doesn't, there's nothing to steal, but she's scared about it. Where my kids, because I've got a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 15-year-old, share everything. You can find anything about them anyway. I mean, I have to scour the web to kind of keep track, especially of my daughter, because she's got an Instagram account, a Finstagram account, which is a fake Instagram for you parents that have kids, which means that they don't want you to follow their actual account, so they make a second account so you follow that one and think everything's going well, and then there's the fake account, which has all the bad stuff that they're doing on it. But it exists, trust me. If your kid has an Instagram account, they have a fake one too. But the reality is that my kids would share everything. So as that becomes the new mean of the next generation of travelers, millennials do the same thing already. They're willing to share more information if you give them the opportunity, and take that information all the way from starting in the shopping process, going through booking, through pre-arrival, you can really begin to gain a competitive insight around travelers. So let's talk about the entire travel life cycle and the shopping experience, but the connected shopping experience and what it's like today. So if you think about today, if you're a business traveler, you probably use a corporate travel agency, maybe a corporate online booking tool. That's generally how you're booking your travel. And unfortunately for the hospitality industry, the reality is that location trumps loyalty every time. So business travelers book closest to where they want to be a large majority of the time. So it's a question of, then what is it that I can do as a hospitality company to still draw that person in, that corporate traveler in, when they're really looking for location? And it's about being able to deliver that additional experience, which means that your corporate travel profile should have more data about you than just your name, rank, and serial number. It needs to have information about what you like from a room perspective, from a, do you like to be close to the elevator? Do you like to be far away from the elevator? And today, the inventory systems that we utilize across the hospitality spectrum, even if today I could provide that inventory capability to a hotel company, there's a good chance that the corporate travel agency couldn't utilize it. They wouldn't be able to take advantage of it. The global distribution systems wouldn't be able to pass that through. You wouldn't be able then to take that to the hotel and then have them check you into the exact place you wanted to be. So the shopping experience today isn't what it should be because we don't have those capabilities. But what we'd like it to be is something where you could take your preferences and then have them flow through the shopping experience all the way to the point of being able to check in. So we're creating capabilities to be able to do that because we need the ability to pass that all the way through the life cycle. And technology is helping that because we're changing the way that we think about inventory rates, availability, because anything should be inventory. Amenities should be inventory. The ability to upsell and cross-sell should be part of the inventory process. And so those systems are beginning to start to advance to a place where the inventory systems of the future will be able to really categorize the type of traveler that you are and customize an experience for you. And being able to really handle that at shopping is what facilitates the booking part. Because if you think about shopping, for airlines, the average leisure consumer shops 7 sites, 35 times before they make a purchase decision. Even if the purchase decision is, I'm not going to make a purchase decision. 7 sites, 35 times. In the hotel space, you have significant amount of shopping that happens today. Do you know what the area of a hotel site that consumers spent most of their time? Photos. They spend most of their time on the photo page. Yet, at the same time as they spend most of their time on the photo page, there are very few sites today that allow you to actually book from a photo. So if I find a room I want, I find the space that I want to book that room, I've got to go back to the shopping path at the start of my search and search again for that type of room, as opposed to clicking on the room and saying, I want to book this. And that's got to change, because if that's where you're spending most of your time, and your consumers are spending most of your time, then you should have the facility to be able to really motivate them to move forward through that process. And so that's what the booking experience needs to feel like, moving from the shopping experience to the booking experience. Instead of just picking a type of room, which happens today, we really want to get to a place where we can pick the room plus the amenities. That goes back to this inventory question, which is, if I've stayed at a hotel a number of times, which I have, and as I was complaining about earlier, if I've stayed at a hotel a number of times, there's a chance I actually have a favorite room. Like, there is a hotel in London that I know a secret about. All the rooms are the same, except one. It's room 316. And it's twice as big, just because of the configuration of the hotel. And because it's twice as big, they felt the need that they needed to put some other stuff in it. So it's got a couch, and it's got an extra television, it's got a little sitting area. Yet, they're not a suite hotel. They don't have different room types. So if you stay there and you know that room 312 is there, and you could book room 312, you'd get a better room, because it is a significantly better room. It's literally the size of 2 rooms. But there's no way to book it. I've called and asked for it. You can put a little note in the system, but there's no way to specifically book that room. And those are the kind of things that a new inventory capability, a new system for rates, availability, and inventory would allow you to do, which is go straight to the room. And think of it like an airline and booking a seat. You know which seat you've got, and you can choose your seat. Now, the airlines have the benefit of the fact that they know that nobody's actually going to be staying in that seat right before you get there. But the reality is that capability would change the guest experience. In particular, really leveraging machine learning around how people choose inventory, choose bookings, is the thing that's going to really change the recommendation engine around that. Today, most of the recommendation engines that exist to try to help prompt the user through the booking experience, candidly, they're just not that good. They're rote. They don't really take your profile into consideration. They're giving they're giving my mom the same choices they're giving me as you go through that process. And those have got to get better. And so really changing the way that we're using kind of an AI and machine learning capability to really provide recommendations in the booking process is one of those things that can help us maximize both guest experience as well as revenue for the hotelier. If you think about pre-arrival, I'm sure everybody here that traveled in got a pre-arrival email from their hotel that said, we have your reservation, thank you, we'll see you soon, kind of thing. But again, no specifics. Not taking into account, they already know things about you. And they also know things about the area around them. And so they're not really taking into consideration the fact that I wonder if they're in town for WTM. I wonder if I should offer them XYZ, right? The idea of being able to really use that time period between booking and check-in as a time to provide other offers, to tailor, to, again, I am a sucker for the upgrade. So on the way over here, on an airline that will go nameless, I was flying business, got to the check-in counter, and they said, would you like to upgrade to first for $299 US? for a 10-hour flight from Dallas to London is the easiest sell they've ever had. Absolutely, I would, right? And the reality is that at the same hotel that I'm staying at today sent me a pre-arrival email that said, would you like to upgrade to a bigger room for $25 or $30 or $40, despite the fact it's not in my corporate travel policy, so I probably would have had to pay for it myself. The answer to that is absolutely yes. But they need to know a little more about me to know that I'm a sucker for the upgrade. And the reality is that they'd always get that, and I'd always buy that, every single time. And that pre-arrival experience is a time that today in the hospitality industry is this huge gap of data that's not utilized between what I know about you, what I know about my property, and putting those together to say, what should I offer you? Do I have an offer for you? Do I have the opportunity to, especially if I've figured out that you're a leisure traveler, do I have experiences that I can pre-offer you for areas around the hotel, for things that you can do? But the only way to do that is, again, to know who you are. So you go to check-in. Check-in today, I'll admit, when I'm traveling on business, my perfect business experience for check-in would be don't talk to anybody, go straight to my room, don't talk to anybody the entire stay, check out, don't talk to anybody, and go back home. Because I'm just busy. I just want a place to lay my head at night. I'm not really interested in, interaction, anything else. For leisure, I'd like to be pampered a bit. The irony of ironies of my life. I've been given the presidential suite at the Four Seasons in Maui while I was speaking at a conference and I was all by myself. I was there for a day. Been to that same hotel with 3 kids. I got stuck in the smallest room in the back corner. But it's because they think of me when I'm speaking at a conference and they have my corporate email and they have my corporate information and they think of me one way. They offer me the presidential suite. And I'm the same person. I come back and get nothing because they don't know me. Again, it goes back to this, where, how can you do that? What we're experiencing typically today on arrival, some people are using mobile check-in. There is some capability around mobile check-in. There's actually a company today that's doing a relatively interesting kind of mobile, not only mobile check-in, but it's mobile connected such that as soon as your room is ready, they actually send you a QR code and you can walk, and your room number, and you can walk directly to your door because the door recognizes the QR code. So you just kind of put your phone up to the door and it unlocks. And it's only valid during the time of stay, which sounds like, for me on a business trip, an excellent way to get in and out of my room because I'm constantly losing the little plastic cards. And so there's starting to be some innovation in check-in, but it's not quite where it needs to be. We did this study on guest experience, and 72% of customers said that the helpfulness of the staff was extremely important, very or extremely important. 71% said that the ease of the check-in, check-out process was very or extremely important. So you're having that first experience where, again, if someone's coming to your hotel that stayed there 100 times and you hand them the same check-in card and ask them to fill out their information, you can be sure that the start of their experience is not going to be spectacular. So we need technology to better handle that, more mobile, we need more capability, and then we need to transition that same thing to the on-property guest experience, which is, 64% of the people that we surveyed said that they would actually share their entertainment preferences prior to check-in if they thought that they would get customized entertainment offers when they got to the room. So the on-property guest experience, I'm going to use another example. There's another hotel that I've stayed in a number of times, and every time I go, when I say a number of times, I mean like 100. And every time I go there, they bring me a plate of fruit to my room. I've never in all 100 times touched a single piece. And yet they still bring it every single time. Now, if they, because they knew me, knew a little something, asked, I'd tell them, just bring me some crackers and cheese and I'll eat it every time. I'll be thankful. I'll be so happy. I mean, I'll literally come down and kiss you on the cheek before I leave because I'd be so happy to have crackers and cheese. But I don't like fruit. So I'm not going to eat them. All they're doing is wasting fruit every time they do it. And so my on-property guest experience, I would share that with them if they give me an opportunity. And again, it goes back to this profile information. Now, I'm going to take a small tangent here for 2 seconds. So some enterprising technologist in the room is going to take this idea. So when it eventually becomes something, remember that I told you about it. So I want to take on it too. Eventually, you are going to own your data on who you are. Somebody is going to create a global profile for travelers that then they create a network with for suppliers that allows you to share more. So the fact that I have 9 million miles, I'll be able to share that with airlines that don't know who I am. The fact that I've been a very loyal hotel customer for a couple of things, primarily because of location, again, I will be able to share that with other hotels that don't know that I should be considered valuable. And so I think you'll eventually own your profile, and that's going to allow you to get better experiences. You think housekeeping's not important, but a connected housekeeping staff, you guys probably know how it works today for housekeeping. If you haven't moved to a mobile technology, the housekeeper's literally walking around with a sheet of paper that says, here are the rooms that are checking out today, here are the rooms that aren't checking out. So I'm going to clean the rooms that are checking out first, then I'll clean the rooms that aren't checking out second, and we'll go by that. 36% of the people we surveyed said if they had the capability, they would like to schedule when their room got cleaned. And they'd like a mobile, an SMS message to say your room is being cleaned or your room is clean. And that capability also translates to better, more efficient, functional front desk services, which is the fact is that, you go today, it's 3 o'clock check-in time, you get to a hotel. Some hotels, when your room isn't ready, they tell you they'll call you, but they're not automatically notified when the room is clean, so they don't know how to notify you that it's clean. So what we have now, we provide this today, but we have this mobile connected housekeeping capability that not only shows when the rooms need to be cleaned, it actually suggests a schedule. So it helps schedule the housekeeping staff to make sure that they're being as efficient as possible for how they clean the rooms. But on top of that, it automatically notifies the property management system that the room is clean as soon as they're done. So it's not that, today off the sheet, it's click, and then this is Amelia on level 4, and got, 417's clean. And then the front desk does not much with it. So getting that, I think it's one of the things that is most effective in streamlining the operations, which is getting to a connected housekeeping experience. Food and beverage, I'm not going to touch on this much, but only 38% of all guests use a concierge. So that means that 62% are doing their own stuff. There's a really cool actual. It's a small island, but it's not really technology, but it could be, which is they've created the ability there are 4 restaurants that sit around this hotel, kind of hotel resort thing. If you go to one of those restaurants, you can actually choose to have your bill put on your hotel folio. So you don't have to pay for it in the restaurant. You just sign your name and it ends up on your hotel room. And so I thought that was awesome and asked them kind of how are they doing, what technology were they using that, and then I found out that the hotel's owned by a father and all 4 restaurants are owned by his 4 kids, and so the technology is they run in the bills over at night and give them to the hotel, and then the hotel just plugs them in. But the reality is you should be able to do that. The capability exists to be able to do some of those things. So But having a connected food and beverage experience with your property management system, so those two things are tied, so that people can actually immediately recognize your preferences and other stuff. I actually stayed in the same hotel for 4 months, never checked out. And I'm a creature of habit, so I ate the same breakfast every morning. And so I would call down to room service and eat the same breakfast every morning. And this is a pretty good hotel. And after like the 4th day, I'd just call down, and literally it didn't matter who it was, would say, would you like your usual? Which was pretty good service. It was, and I found out how they did it later. Also, not technology. They wrote it on a whiteboard that I ordered the same thing every day. So when people answered the phone, they knew that what I was getting. Payment, on the electronic payment side, you kind of see where everything's headed. We are going to have to adapt to Alipay and WeChat because there's a greater component of outbound Chinese travelers. So we're going to have to expand those payment platforms and make sure that they're more seamless. But we've got to get to a more robust kind of platform around payments. And then the post-pay experience, as you might guess, is iffy at best today, which is we don't spend nearly enough time trying to get people that have already stayed on our properties to come back. They might send a survey, they do a little bit, but especially if you haven't booked directly with the hotel, the chances that you get real follow-up to try to entice you to come back is very, very small. And it is probably the greatest missing marketing capability that most hoteliers have, which is the fact that they don't work hard enough to really bring travelers that have already stayed with them back for a second time and a third time and a fourth time. And again, that's a lack of understanding who the traveler is and utilizing the data that they already have at their fingertips to really tie those things together. Again, it's really an opportunity for where kind of that machine learning capability starts to begin to, because instead of people trying to figure out, which is what happens today, people trying to figure out how to market and how to go back to people, you're really going to begin to get suggestions as to how to market back to consumers. So I think if you kind of look at it in a whole, you've got to also deal with this issue, which is the post-stay part of it. 38% of all of the people we surveyed wrote online about their experience. 33% of it shared something on social media, and then 47% of people posted pictures and or specific visual content about their stay. And when we look at it, what's interesting is hoteliers do an okay job right now of responding to negative comments. They do almost nothing to respond to positive comments. So you see that people go out of their way to go, we're sorry to, if somebody flame mails kind of around them, and hoteliers go out of their way to go, we're sorry you had a bad experience, we'd like to make it better next time with this stuff. Somebody else puts out, loved it, fantastic, best hotel I've ever stayed at, you are amazing, love you. Guess what? Hotels don't respond to that because they just let it roll by itself, where they're missing a chance to engage, missing a chance to re-engage with a customer. So just lastly, all I'd say is customer intimacy shows you care. It shows that you're connected to your customer. So taking all the way through that process, the same set of data, a golden set of information around both inventory and a golden set of information around your customers is what ultimately delivers a connected experience and also delivers on a promise of customer intimacy that says you'll be cared for, which in hospitality is the most important part. You want to feel cared for, and that's what that capability allows. And again, my push to everyone would be look at how deeply you can connect with your consumers, capture that data, utilize that data in a way that delivers customer intimacy at scale. Thanks very much.